thank you for joining us. 1, on a special evening, 2, for braving the weather to get here, and 3, for having so much spirit in spite of the crummy weather. It tells me we really are going to succeed in our quest. We've come together tonight to celebrate the vision and courage of 3 extraordinary civic leaders: Adelaide Gomer, Bill Samuels, and Leo Hendry. Who've taken on powerful interests to protect the rights of average Americans. I want to thank our New York board for their continued involvement and guidance in addressing the complex issues we face, and they are complex. Common Cause President Bob Edgar for his relentless efforts to expose and end political corruption, and also for his unwavering support for the state champion. And national board members Chang Park and Bill Hubbard for supporting New York Common Cause. I also have to thank our talented, tireless, and unflappable staff of only 5 who did groundbreaking work on a number of issues that would have normally required a lot more people. Last but not least, I have to thank my husband Fred, who has put up with a total lunatic for the past 3 months and endured it, as always, with the greatest sense of humor anyone could imagine. John Gardner, and I usually go back to him when we come to trying times, because he was a very brilliant and perceptive man, believed that government and the political process were essential to balance the interests of different groups and to pursue our broader shared values. He also felt that the government apparatus of his day was in need of serious repair to correct many of the same problems that are in evidence now. The power of special interests, to control politics, campaign finance abuses, corruption among public officials, the partisan divide, and most importantly, the distrust and lack of citizen involvement in the workings of their government. He formed Common Cause when the country and government were divided over the Vietnam War. Many felt powerless to influence the actions of government. They needed a vehicle to make their voices heard and to advocate solutions to the problem. This situation may seem familiar to a lot of you, but the abuses in our system are far greater now. Surprise, money is a leading culprit. There's more of it in politics today than John Gardner could have ever imagined. The armies of highly paid lobbyists and the flood of unlimited and anonymous corporate and special interest money unleashed by recent court decisions are controlling our politics at state and national levels. As one prominent economist recently and sadly said, we have the best government money can buy. Economic inequality is greater than at any time since the Depression, and the tradition of politics as public service has eroded. Government is no longer balancing competing interests. It's one of its most crucial roles. The unfettered use of money, coupled with efforts to limit the power of the vote, among which is politicized redistricting, very high on the list. Legislators have gerrymandered districts to protect their jobs and often to secure party dominance, making it difficult and often almost impossible to replace ineffectual and even corrupt representatives. Despite these challenges, as hard as it is to believe, there is room for optimism. The spirit in the room tonight is one example, but if we can use the opportunities, as Dylan Radigan said, that we now have, First, citizens are engaged. Leaders like those we are honoring tonight, from a broad array of interest groups, are speaking out and acting to end the abuses. Our host, Dylan Radigan, formerly the anchor of Fast Money, has launched a campaign on his own show to get the money out. Last but not least, Americans from all walks of life are making their voices heard in the streets, over the internet, and in the media. States are often the laboratories for change, and Common Cause New York has been and still is a leader in the fight for reform. We expose the money spent by special interest groups to get favorable treatment on issues ranging from hydrofracking to taxing sugar drinks. We help create and modernize New York City's successful public finance system, and now we're engaged in an effort to bring public funding to elections in New York State. We've championed an independent redistricting commission, but realized this year that our legislators were unlikely to establish one, despite the pledges almost all of them signed. Public pressure was needed for change. Having returned to New York after 25 years spent working to reform California, a state that's been a laboratory for just about everything, good and bad, our executive director, Susan Lerner, decided to borrow a page from Common Cause California's playbook. They had just led a successful effort to end legislative control of redistricting through a ballot initiative and formed a citizens redistricting committee that drew fair, nonpartisan district maps for the entire state. Since New York doesn't permit ballot initiatives, Common Cause New York drew its own set of reform maps, which you've seen in the bar area, which you'll be seeing again soon, that could be used both by the press and by the governor to evaluate and, if necessary, veto the legislature's version. It's my pleasure to introduce our savvy and indomitable executive director, Susan Lerner.